What is up, my ninjas? I am Strydent, and I'm back with another Joe vid. This time, I am reviewing the 50th anniversary 2-packs that I got. One over Christmas, and one I just happened upon in the during the trip to Toys R Us. So, as you can see here, we've got the Shadow Guard versus Gung-Ho, and the other 2-pack is Spirit versus Storm Shadow. Now, I have these guys a little bit dressed up, or some of them a little bit dressed up, looking cooler than what they would look like out of the box as far as weapons go. And, you know, I know how to pose them a little bit to make them look a little bit more capable. But as we know, 50th anniversary has not been a stellar release. And I'm going to go into detail with what I think worked and what I think didn't work with these two releases. And I know this goes against my credo of reviewing only stuff I love, but you know, one of these packs was a gift. One of these was something I thought I wanted. You know what I mean? So let's get into it. So we're going to start off with Spirit and Storm Shadow. These are two of my favorite characters, and I have yet to have ever had a Spirit figure, so I figured this would be the one. This was a gift from my mother-in-law, so yeah, I didn't take it back. As you can see, this is what they come with. You get two file cards they're both double-sided for each character. You've got them in French and Spanish as well as English. You guys can pause if you want to read the file cards for each. I'm doing, you know, the good guy first, and then his weapons, etc. And it's weird. Why are we seeing classic Spirit there? You know, with freedom. If you notice, these are the accessories he comes with. No freedom. What the fuck? Is that too unrealistic for him to have a trained eagle, you know, as his companion? I just don't get it. You know, these are classic things that were part of the character. And then they gave him pretty much the 25th anniversary stuff. Really? And then, you know, here's Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow, you know, is one of my favorite characters. And for them to kind of present him in this strange kind of light. And I've seen reviews where people said he was really awesome, but they gave him weaponry and stuff from so many other characters when they've already gotten a lot of this stuff right with previous releases up to this point, you know, with Pursuit of Cobra and Retaliation and even Renegades, you know. I mean, Retaliation, they got it right. It's just weird. So here's the look of the characters. Now, I have an issue with this 2-pack, and it stems from the fact that these two had a beef during this, I think it was Sunbow. Yeah, it was during the Sunbow portion of the G.I. Joe, Sunbow seasons of the G.I. Joe cartoon. And the versions of each character that we got are, and look at the flash, I'm sorry, I have to point this out. Look at the flash on the edge of that. That's just, I mean, I could cut it off, but I already paid the money. It should have been done right. But anyway, the versions of these two, mainly Storm Shadow, the version that we got, it doesn't fit the time period that him and Spirit were having that ongoing beef in the Sunbow series. This is, you know, version 2, I think it is, of the classic Storm Shadow. And it just doesn't fit. Why not just give us the version that fits this, you know, of both of them, so we can relive that? I don't know. As for Spirit, he's kind of plain. He's got pieces of some Rise of Cobra gear. That was one of the vests that the Pit Troopers had, the extra vest. And then overall, his everything is really simple. What I like is that none of it is that semi-racist, you know, cowboys and Indians look. That's just not cool. But I still have to go back and say, how come they had the nerve to give us that generic picture of Charlie Iron Knife from back in the day, you know, classic, I shouldn't say generic, but classic Spirit and Freedom, but then the figure we get doesn't have Freedom and also does not look like what you saw in the file card. Storm Shadow still. There's little things about him that I don't like. His neck is so high up, it looks weird. I wouldn't care so much if it was just an army builder, you know, if it was just like a red ninja or a black ninja or something. The paint, I mean, out the box, those scuff marks that you see through the gray, camo pieces. That's how he was. I haven't played with this guy really. I had him on his stand, both of them. I've probably played actually with Spirit a little bit more than Storm Shadow. So it's strange to me that, the paint is the way it is on Storm Shadow, and I didn't really mess with him. He's easily probably my least favorite Storm Shadow so far. But as you can see, it's those ninja parts that have been reused and reused and reused since the Ultimate Storm Shadow back in the 30th anniversary line. I'm going to get into a little bit more detail with that so you guys can see. I guess if you missed out on those ninjas, then it's worth it. But look at the shitty paint. I mean, that you can seal the paint, you know what I mean? Or you could use higher quality paint. You're already using low quality plastic. Anyway, these are some of the reuses of the Ultimate Storm Shadow body since the Ultimate Storm Shadow body. And there's more. I just chose to show you some of the main ones. It's kind of weird that they reused and reused and reused. And I know to some degree it's not a problem, but I mean, they already reused the entire fucking figure. So it's kind of strange for them to go back and do what they did. The backpack. It's got some cool detail in it, but it goes to the blue dragon ninja, whatever he was called, back in the 25th anniversary. And it's been used several times with other figures, and it just seems weird. I think there was a version of Snake Eyes, like an Arctic Snake Eyes or something, that had that too. But why use that when you already made the perfect backpack for him, where all you would have to do is tweak the kind of bow and arrow that you give, bow and arrows, or bow itself, because the arrows were part of the backpack. Just tweak it a little bit, and or pick a bow that fits in there that can be folded out, and then you've got a winner. And instead they go with this old school, I mean, it's like kind of outdated, and then they give him the swords from that figure too and make them red. It's just like, you already have things that are decidedly Storm Shadow. Why would you not use it? They've already reused those parts that I was talking about on other releases. You remember those? That came with that red ninja that was in the 3-pack. That had the slice mask on. Why can't you use that, that same backpack for an actual Storm Shadow figure, Not to mention the bow and arrows that have been used repeatedly with a lot of figures since they've been, released. It just feels like a lot of laziness here. Like they just dug in a barrel and said, okay, these are the weapons that this is our ninja barrel, and this is our standard, soldier barrel. Why not give him an even better bow? Like, that's probably the best bow they have, the best compound bow at least. They could have done that, So, I'm not impressed with that, and I'm probably going to swap out weapons and stuff. Spirit, why has he still got the arrow gun? Does anybody else besides me find that just a little bit kind of outdated? It's kind of cool that it shoots arrows, but it's like you give the Native American guy a sniper rifle that shoots arrows. Arrows, guys. And the sniper rifle itself is not even like a souped up, awesome looking sniper rifle. It's just a very basic sniper rifle. I'm not feeling this, I wasn't feeling it the first time, and I'm definitely not feeling it now. Backpack. I like the backpack, but still, it's got arrows and stuff, and it's like you did such a good job making the figure not racist, not a stereotypical character, and then you turn around and you do this shit. It's like the two things together are just not cool. So knowing me and knowing how I liked Pursuit of Cobra so much, and knowing the fact that I dug this figure being a throwback to Billy from Predator, I was like, yeah, a lot of that shit is going out. It's going into the bin of shit. I don't like when the figure and the weapons don't match for G.I. Joe. So I gave him a different, assault rifle. I figured this looks better. It looks more up to date, and it looks like something, someone would be using out in the field today. And this came with a lot of different figures, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of us will have tons of these kind of rifles for our figures, and it shouldn't be an issue. Notice I'm ignoring the type of assault rifle, because honestly I can't remember right now. I'm kind of tired, but excuse me, you've seen this thing a billion times, and it would have been an easy fix for them to do out of the factory, you know what I mean, instead of waiting for us to have to do it ourselves. But you know, this is how Hasbro gets down, and it shouldn't surprise anyone. It shouldn't surprise me, and it doesn't. It's just the fact that this is what ended up happening during the 50th anniversary. It just frustrates me. So all in all, the 50th anniversary has been a bust because they just don't seem to care as much as they should, considering this is a milestone. It's 50 years of G.I. Joe, you know? It's a big deal. But, you know, whatever. But anyway, he has his combat knife. It's the same one that came with the, what do they call the Joe Troopers? They had two of them, a smaller one, and then they had this one. I like this because that seems like something he would actually use, like he'd do some close quarters damage. Then, of course, you have the machete, which we've seen with so many 25th anniversary releases. It fits, especially if he's out in the wild, you know, like kind of, you know, jungle or like the lush forests, you know, like he could actually use that stuff. But I like the blades. That works because he seems like the type of guy who would be at home with just a blade and a pistol. I like that look. I'm surprised they didn't give him a bow and arrow. So I just was like, I'll give him this bow and this particular compound bow, Rambo style, you know what I mean? And, you know, have him shooting arrows. So, you know, but I like the figure itself because there's possibilities with him. I like him more than the Storm Shadow. The Storm Shadow, it's a serviceable figure, but it just feels like kind of a half-assed version of a classic Storm Shadow figure, you know? I like him. I mean, I like Storm Shadow, which is why I was like kind of happy that, you know, she picked this one for me, but it's more of Spirit being the winner in this case than Storm Shadow. And now on to Gung-Ho and the Shadow Guard. Now these two, I dig the overall look. This Gung-Ho and actually that Shadow Guard were figures we saw in the concept case a couple years back at what was that, Toy Fair, and I think at one of the Joe Cons as well. I dig the look of these figures a lot. Of course, they were Gung-Ho specifically was packaged with some kind of lame weaponry, so I gave him that G36. Here's a kind of an overview of all the crap they come with. The Shadow Guard is armed to the teeth, and it's pretty cool because it's exactly like the regular Crimson Guard release, or the CG as they call them, not the CG as in Crimson Guard, but as in Siege, the CG. Here is, which I don't get, that just sounds kind of weird. You can pause if you want to look at this card up close and read the whole bio. But you know, Gung-Ho was the must-get because of the fact that he was a figure that we saw in the concept case. And these are the weapons they chose to give him. I don't like anything except for the grenade launcher and the pistol and the knife. More so the knife. I gave him a different pistol because that one just for me doesn't fit. Deagles are big weapons, you know, even in the hands of a big guy. But the big problem I have with it is the backpack and the, you know, the chain gun, and I'll get to that in more detail later. But I want to talk more about his pistol. Now, I don't understand what it is with this particular handgun. It's a Desert Eagle, but it's so small and skinny. And those things, if you've ever felt them, I mean, they weigh like 10 pounds. They're huge. And even in a big person's hands, they're big. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to give him this smaller. If they want him to have a small pistol, I'm going to give him the small pistol that came with most of the Rise of Cobra figures. And this pistol, it looks like it's a Beretta or something. It's about the same size, or even a Glock, actually. It's the same size, roughly, as that Deagle. And it shouldn't be like that. And the body of the gun, the actual, like, length of the gun is bigger, it's thicker than the Deagle, which doesn't make any sense. Here is the card for the Shadow Guard. I really dig this look, you know, and I'm going to go into uses, possible uses for this character, but I dig the look. I dig it a lot. Here's all his gear up close. He comes with a lot, and everything works. I don't have any issues with this part of the release at all. He looks awesome. His articulation is awesome. His, everything is awesome. I don't have any issues with him at all. I think they were thinking when they made him. The size difference works. Gung-Ho is an awesome figure. I'll give him props for that. Although I think it's kind of weird that he's so teal. You know what I mean? Like, if I remember correctly, his pants were regular camo pants. He just had that kind of bluish, the sky bluish, or maybe it's an ashy blue flak jacket. And I wish they had went back and done that instead of going so, 90s G.I. Joe, the era of G.I. Joe, the portion of G.I. Joe that made a lot of us stop collecting Joes with this color scheme. I mean, where the fuck is he going to, blend in with this kind of camo? It just looks lazy when they could have given him an actual camo job on his pants that works and, maybe darkened the blue or made it look a little more washed out. But as we know, Hasbro doesn't like work, and this all would imply that they would have to work. So they figured since they showed us in the concept case, we just get it how it is. They've been getting a lot of mileage out of the Ultimate Roadblock because all the big guys since that figure is released have been using his legs or his torso or something. You can tell this is parts of Ultimate Roadblock because that holster and the grenades on the side, exactly the same way on his figure. It's really strange. But that's the way they do things, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of expect this from them. The knife also. I put stick tack in there to keep the knife in because the knives have a habit of falling out. But I like the way he looks, everything works. I don't have any issues with him. And like I said before, I don't have issues with him other than the paint job. And as I said before, with the Shadow Guard, these guys just look awesome. I'm kind of sad that I was only able to find one, but that makes him a little bit more important in my collection because I was only able to find one. So as you can see, it's just the Crimson Guard cast in black. I bought the set mainly for Gung-Ho. So this is just a bonus because it's an already well done figure. He's probably the best figure of the 4 figures, based on these 2 sets, because you don't need to do anything else to him. You don't have to do anything else to him at all. He's perfect. And I was kind of surprised that sheath on the back can actually double as a holster. I mean, they really did their thing with him, and I'm really happy that I have 3 in total, and I'm going to get into a little bit more talk about them here in a second. But I mean, the detailing on him is cool. Like I said, the sheath, that's the sword sheath that you see that looks like a huge holster on his back. You can also use that as a gun, a pistol holster. He's got a knife sheath on his leg that's facing us. And it works perfectly. I didn't even have to put any stick tack in there. The knife fits perfectly with, with what you're trying to put in there, and I like that. It's one of those things where it makes you wonder, how come they didn't do this before? He has the fast draw holster, and I like that too. It works really well. There's no problems. The gun sticks where it's supposed to stick, and I have no complaints about it. It's just all together well done. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just all together well done. I focused a lot on the back portion of the figure because of the fact that the holsters, sheath and holsters are all towards the back, but there's no detail lost in the back. His legs, you can tell, came from Alley Viper, but they work here. There's no issue. It looks like something Cobra would put together for a uniform. It doesn't look bad. Here you can see what he looks like next to the rest of the newer Crimson Guard. These are the kind of guys that if I can find more, I'm going to get more. I don't want more than 6, so I just need 3 more. I don't care if it's 2 black ones and 1 red one or a bunch of red ones, whatever. I need a couple more of these guys because they're some of the best things to come out of Retaliation that weren't actually in the fucking movie. So these should have been Rise of Cobra, or I'm sorry, not Rise of Cobra, Pursuit of Cobra figures, and they probably were. That's probably what they were intended to be initially. And I love the designs, and I'm happy with the ones I have. You know, if that's all I can get, that's all I can get. Here you can see them compared to, you know, the various versions of the Crimson Guard over the years. Um, One just seems like a palette swap, and the other one you can see is classic. I like having these guys accompany my Alley Viper. They just fit perfectly. Um, I mean, I do have a squad that I like to use Alley Viper with, but these look good as you know, backup for Alley Viper when the situation, you know, really calls for it. Maybe these guys are on base, and you know, you know, Alley Viper uses them when shit hits the fan. Either way, lots of possibilities. He's just a badass looking character. I love the bayonet on this thing. Um, it just, I don't know, he just looks ready. And that's what I like about him. He just looks like this guy would be a threat for the Joes. So the fact that I only have one leads me to make him an important character in the ranks of Cobra. So I'm going to figure out who he's going to be, you know. Is he going to be Crake? Is he going to be, you know, just someone I make up? Who's he going to be? Is he going to lead the Jormungand? It's possible. They look really thorough together. So we'll have to see how that all works out. I don't know. I don't know. These guys go for decent prices. Well, I shouldn't say decent. They go for expensive prices online. For some reason, I mean, I guess because they're cool looking figures, it means everyone who has them is going to overcharge you for them. And they're so plentiful online. That's the thing. It's just that they're plentiful at crazy prices. Gung-Ho is kind of the same way. Because he's so hard to find in the store, I don't even know how I managed to find him. I tried to find one for a fellow, one of my ninjas, and since I mentioned this figure in one of my other videos, I think it was in a Christmas video, I have yet to see him in the store. Because like I told him, if I find him, I'm going to pick him up and I'll give you a heads up so you can give me your information and I'll mail it to you. But I haven't had any luck, man. So I apologize. This guy's hard to find, and he's expensive because of the fact that they played with us by showing us this figure in the concept case. Now, I love him with this weapon because this feels like what he would be. He would be the guy running around with a grenade launcher. In the G.I. Joe video game, the Rise of Cobra video game, he had a grenade launcher. It was kind of fun to run around and pummel things. They gave him this machine gun that came with, it's come with other figures in the past, but the ones I have came from the Pit and what were they called? The Pit Troopers. And it kind of looks like something he would use. It's a heavy. He's that guy. He would use a heavy weapon, but he seems like the guy that would punch before he would shoot. You know what I mean? He'd run around and be slamming people and shit before he would pick up a big ass gun and start laying down cover fire, you know? And it seems like that's been his characterization for a long time. He enjoys getting in there and getting dirty and shit and fighting and choking people, and you know, he wants to, you know, really kill bad guys, you know. But I just, for the life of me, cannot understand why they keep on reusing Heavy Duty's weaponry with other characters. Weapons are characteristic of the character wielding the weapon. And for them to forget that and just give this weapon set to just random people who don't really need it, it just, you know, who wouldn't choose this? It just bothers me. So yeah, that goes into my backup heavy duty weapon box. The teal on this ammo belt, like really? Oh man, it's just like Hasbro can't just stay on the good path. You do so many things right, and then you do this one stupid thing to negate it. I mean, look at how many other ones. There's an unpainted one right there in the center. Why don't you just throw that in the box? That's less work for you and your sweatshop full of children who will have to paint this or else get their toes burned. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, or that belt, that ammo belt right there. That would have been perfect. That closed ammo belt. That would have been perfect. But instead, they gave us teal ammunition. Lame. So I gave him a different assault rifle. I figured, you know, we'll keep the grenade launcher and give him the assault rifle. I like to think of certain characters I see them using a certain weapon all the time. And then there's certain guns that I have around my base, you know, my various bases for my Joes, the actual pit, the rolling command center version of the pit, and the setup that I made. I have a bunch of guns that are just the standard guns that are all over the place, because in Rise of Cobra, in the movie, there were a set of guns that were like always around, and it seemed like everyone had them. So, you know, from time to time, I tend to give those to characters that, you know, they're barehanded fighters, but typically when they're in a base in a combat situation, you need some, you know, weaponry. That's what you use. And the bigger pistol, the chunkier small pistol, it just works better. It fits in 95% of these figures' hands better. This is what I was talking about when I was saying that Rise of Cobra figures just were, some of them were just, the majority of them were just like a dream, because everything fit, everything worked. Gung-Ho looks really cool. Him and Spirit look really cool with the rest of the team. They fit in perfectly. Even with his outlandish colors, he fits in perfectly. For those people who are more artistically inclined or brave enough to actually sit down and paint, you could paint his pants darker and then do up the camo yourself. But, you know, as is, it still kind of works. You know, I would want more green on his pants and then go from there. But, it works. It's not all terrible, you know. It's a good essence of what he was. It's just that I don't see where that fits when everyone else looks so what's the word? You know, tactical and practical when it comes to this kind of military operation stuff. And he just seems so outlandish with these colors. But here's a size comparison with some of the other big guys. He's on par with Roadblock from Rise of Cobra, or I'm sorry, from from my brain. God, why Resolute? Jesus. Here he is with some of the other ones. You can see him, you know, he towers over some of these guys. And here he is with a mixture of big guys from both Rise of Cobra and Retaliation. And of course, you still have Resolute Roadblock there, who they stand kind of neck and neck, which I like. And then here he is next to Nemesis Enforcer, which they also stand shoulder to shoulder, neck and neck, which, you know, that's fine. The strangest thing, though, about this guy's proportions is how much he towers over the Iron Grenadiers. I thought he was going to be like super huge compared to them, and he's like a little bit, his shoulders come up just a little bit farther than Heinrich. You know, they're huge, both of them, but he's bigger. But all in all, he's still, you know, overall with him, he's a good figure. He fits your team. The paint apps are pretty decent, and he's another big guy. He's a classic big guy, you know. And alas, we've come to the bottom line. A lot of people will have questions for me about this, but you know, this is one of those times where it needs to be said and it needs to be straightforward. These figures here are some examples of Hasbro not really trying. There's some good things in here that they can't dodge, like the Shadow Guard. That's just an awesome figure all around, well done, good accessories, awesome accessories, storage for most of his weapons. The weapons actually make sense and play well with the figure. Things like on the Shadow Guard, his assault rifle with the bayonet, it actually has a shorter buttstock than the release that came with the in Retaliation of just the standard version. That gun was much longer, and also it in the previous releases with the Rise of Cobra, that buttstock was too long, so you couldn't have them actually shoulder their rifle. So things like that, they shortened it. That was smart. We saw that kind of thought process with the Retaliation Frogman or Eel that came with the weapons locker. So, you know, there's a lot of things missing from this release that would make it, you know, 100% worth it. And, you know, unfortunately, they just didn't feel like putting in the effort. I mean, things like Gung-Ho not being even close color-wise to his model. He's just so over the top They took one color, they sprayed on just a little bit of green in a couple places. They're almost accents when they were a big block of color on his person, and then just threw in random weapons all across the board with the exception of the Shadow Guard, which to me doesn't make sense. You've got to keep the character, keep the integrity of the original character, both in the design and in the weapons. I mean, if you've been collecting for a long time, like many of you have, and I have, you can easily fix the weapon part. But it's the design aspects that are really killers for me. Gung-Ho is a cool figure, though, because, you know, this body type better fits what we saw back in the good old days of G.I. Joe. That this feels more like what Gung-Ho should have felt like all along. And it's kind of strange that it took how long for this to happen, you know? And I don't know. I'm glad it finally happened. Storm Shadow feels a little out of place, but it does scratch the itch for some folks that just you have to have all of them. This is another version of the character that we did not yet have. So, you know, I like it. It's all right in that respect. I shouldn't say I like it, because I don't really like it for, you know, what I was trying to get, what you're trying to get out of the 2-pack. I like it in the sense that it's classic Storm Shadow done up in the more modern style. So that works, you know, on that level it works. But I just wish they would have paid more attention, you know, and given us a little bit more for the price, you know, because when I got these guys, they were full price. So they were in the $20 range or something like that, $24. I think at Toys R Us they were like $24.99. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. If you guys are looking for these specific characters, then get both sets. They're both worth it in that respect. If you are trying to complete your Joe team and you need Spirit and you need Gung-Ho, do it. Cobra team, if you need a Shadow Guard and you need Storm Shadow, they are worth it. Pick them up. You won't be sorry. If none of that appeals to you, you'll be pissed off with what you get in this package, both packages. So I'm Strydent. This has been my review of the G.I. Joe 50th anniversary 2-packs, Storm Shadow versus Spirit, and Gung-Ho versus the Shadow Guard. Right now, the cool thing I can give you guys as far as insight goes on the price of these guys, they're on sale at Toys R Us. They're all running for $9.98, I think. None of this shit sold very well. The only things that have been holding their price in stores are the vehicle packs, especially the one with the Sky Striker. I don't get it. I kind of personally feel like everything should have went, you know, down in price because none of it was selling. I mean, there's a Toys R Us that my son and I go to all the time, or sons and I go to all the time, and none of this shit moved. The only things that moved were the times that there were sales, and then all the Gung-Hos are gone. Right now, I could go tomorrow and, what's his name? Shipwreck and that terrible Cobra Commander they're in there right now. They've been peg warming like a motherfucker. Same thing with your Ice Cream Soldier, Heat Viper with a flamethrower, which that's not actually what he did, and Barbecue, what was his name? Blowtorch. God, they've been peg warming hard. Same thing with Spirit and Storm Shadow, peg warming hard. Really, the only one that's been moving is this Gung-Ho set and some of those big 3-packs, but $9.98. So I would get on it if you guys have the opportunity. So anyway, thanks for watching. You guys have been great, and peace outside.